Sounds good, Bruce.
All right, let's call the meeting to order at 6:01. I want everybody to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alicia, can you do a roll call? Please?
Yep. Steve Bigelow.
Here.
Ian McDonald.
Here.
Lori Blargen.
Here.
Lacey Oster. Here. Bruce Blargen.
Here.
Danny Erickson. Here. Matt Pupo.
Here. All right. District mission is together we engage, educate, and empower all learners, bridging their passions to pathways to create successful futures and positively contribute to our local and global communities. All right. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. The agenda, the next item is public comment. I have one public comment. Shannon, did you have any?
No.
Okay. Jeremy Lesha.
Jeremy Lesha, 803 Rose Court, 17-plus year resident of the village of Somerset. I'd like to start again with two quotes. You mean the special privileges you and your kids and the others in your admin special circle enjoy? You are part of the protected class as well as part of the toxic problem. Now to the part that still really gets to me. The privilege that my kids enjoy because I may be friends with multiple members of this district's administration. My son was a 24 graduate from Somerset, a highly decorated and notable athlete in this school. He electrified hundreds of fans, even those from opposing teams, with his high-flying aerial dunks. He is, for the moment, the 7th leading scorer in boys basketball history, and he did this playing only 2 seasons. He played on the C team his freshman year. Sure sounds privileged and protected to me. He caught more long touchdown passes in 2 years than almost anyone to put on a Spartan football uniform, and a lot of those were caught over the opponent's head in outstretched arms. I'm going to guess that he's near the top of the receiving touchdowns and yards as well. Again, doing this in only 2 years as a varsity starter. He was named to the WBCA State All-Star basketball team, as well as the WFCA State All-Star football team as a senior. He played 3 sports all through high school and maintained a better than average grade point average, but he was privileged and protected. He did not have the same experiences in the classroom as our daughter. He struggled through elementary and middle school with high anxiety. I'm pretty sure that at least one board member here wouldn't have wanted him in a classroom because he may have been a distraction to others. Elementary was tough, all the way through. Mrs. Proshok, his 4th grade teacher, would tell us he was always happy to come to school and give me a hug, but then his anxiety would kick in on an almost daily basis. Middle school was a game changer. I had in my hands on 2 different occasions open enrollment papers to a different school. What kept me from filling those out was the support and love that some of the teachers and staff showed not only to Dylan, but to us as parents as well. Mrs. Donnelly, Abby Bohada, Troy Wink, Trent Probst, Sarah Prochnow, Stacy Blill, Joe Hutter, just a few to be named. This was when Dylan was just a 5'4", 7th and 8th grader. No one knew he'd be a 6'4" kid and have the talent he had. He'll be remembered here for all the sporting activities, not the challenges and hurdles that he had to overcome that he still deals with to this day. For us as parents, he will have left a lasting impression on a select few middle school students. Prior to graduation, he had asked Mrs. Prochnow if he could come in and talk about his experience and how he tried to overcome those challenges. For a kid that you didn't know and to try to have a conversation with, you'd get one-word answers.
30 seconds.
He went in front of a class of 10 kids he didn't know, and just to give them a connection with someone. Here's an email from Mrs. Prochnow. Dylan spoke to my students today and did a phenomenal job. He spoke about his experiences in middle school, the tough spots, the strategies and sports and people that helped him find success by the end of middle school. He shared about his high school experiences as well. He was so well-spoken and engaging. I've never seen my students so quiet. The boys were very engaged in what he had to say. Many of my current students are very similar to middle school Dylan. He is such a great role model for them. It was so great to have Dylan come down and speak to my students. A great full circle moment. But then again, he's privileged and protected.
item, course requests. Sarah calling.
Hi, I am here again to make the official request for the courses listed in the board materials that I prepared for you. Again, these are courses that our students at the high school are requesting to take at Northwood Technical College and University of Wisconsin River Falls as part of the Start College Now and ECCP program. These students are primarily junior and senior students. However, we have a couple, one ninth grader and a couple sophomore students that are requesting to take college classes at River Falls, which was recently opened up to 9th and 10th grade students this school year. We have many students that are very successful in this program right now and are jump-starting their college career and getting ready for life after high school. The courses that are in the courses document are the ones that I have gone through and filtered in terms of what I feel would be appropriate for approval. Based off of the requirements of students only being able to take courses that we do not offer at the high school as a current class. At the bottom of this doc are the courses that, again, I feel we would be able to deny because we have similar courses that we offer at the high school. I do want to touch on speech because I know this question comes up a lot. This past fall, myself and Mr. Probst and Mrs. Eichten did some research and found out that in order to offer speech at the high school, you do have to have a licensed teacher to have that class as a course offering. We do not have a licensed English teacher at this time. However, we have spoken to the English department and we do have one teacher that is willing to go through the certification for that additional licensure component. So I believe this will be the last time that we will be requesting speech as one of our courses through Northwood Technical Colleges. We will have a licensed staff member who will be able to teach that next year once they go through the credentialing process. I'm hopeful we can get that done by fall of next year. But we are in the process of making that change so that, again, we have a speech class back at the high school. Any questions for me?
One of the criteria for taking these classes is that you've done everything at Somerset first, right? I'm surprised we have 9th and 10th graders who.
So state statute says any student that would like to take college classes at the university or at a technical college, but specifically for 9th and 10th graders, if they are taking a class that would be considered a course towards graduation, in which it would be like an elective, they are able to take it per the state statute if we do not offer it at the high school. Mm-hmm. That was a change this year. I think it was because of declining enrollment with the whole UW system. Because I'll be honest, when we have some 9th and 10th graders requesting to take college classes, it makes me very nervous. We have one 10th grader right now who's being very successful in her courses, but that was a change this year. Mm-hmm.
How do they get there?
So my sophomore student drives herself. Mm-hmm. And then before she got her driver's license for the first 2 weeks of school, her parents drove her.
So they have to get their own transportation then?
Yes, we do not provide transportation, we do not pay for parking. The school district is only responsible for tuition, books, and any other associated fee. Well, if you have any other questions, please do not hesitate to email me. I'm always happy to answer those. Can I leave the binder?
Love it.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay, great, thank
Thanks,
you.
Sarah.
Have a good night, thank you.
All right, next item, state assessment data, from principals and curriculum director.
Yeah, so before we start, I want to introduce Jessie Thorson. She is our new Director of Pupil Services, attending her first board meeting back in Somerset. Jessie was with us multiple years ago as our school psych. Now she's back, obviously, as our Director of Pupil Services, so I want to make sure we introduced her first before Sarah kicks it off, and our principals and Jessie will go through 23-24 state assessment data and then also talk about building goals for this year.
Great.
Thank you. All right, well, good evening, thank you so much. So I am going to give you an overview of our Wisconsin State Assessment System. I'm going to give you kind of an overview about all the different kinds of state exams that we're required to administer to students over the course of a school year. And then I'm going to talk with you briefly about all of the changes that happened in 23-24 because there were a significant amount of changes to how we are being measured by the state. So in grades 3 through 8 for English Language Arts and Mathematics, grades 4 and 8 in Science, and 4, 8, and 10 in Social Studies, they all take the Wisconsin Forward exam. Those are untimed tests, multiple sessions for each one, and so there are some changes there, but that is every spring from about the middle of March till the end of April. That is the testing window, and so buildings work to build a schedule that's supportive of students to not overload the testing on them because it is a significant chunk of time. For students who in grades 3 through 11 in those same spaces, but also 8 to 11 in Science, and then also 10th grade in Social Studies, the dynamic learning map is for less than 1% of our students, and we did not have any students that qualified that would be taking the DLM. If a student was qualified to be able to take the DLM, they were opted out. Their parents made the decision to not have them take the test. It's for our students who are pretty cognitively disabled. At the high school level then, in addition to the 10th grade Forward exam in Social Studies, that's the only space that Social Studies is assessed is on the Forward exam for 10th graders. The high school students in grades 9 and 10 take our pre-ACT Secure. This past year was the second year of pre-ACT Secure. Prior to that, it was the ACT Aspire exam. ACT switched it to pre-ACT Secure. It's aligned to the ACT that you're well familiar with and the college ACT for career and readiness skills. They get tested in 9th and 10th grade in the areas of English Language Arts, math, and then Science as well. Okay? And then as juniors in high school, all of our 11th graders take the ACT plus writing. So they do a reading section, there's an English section, there's a math section, Science, and then there is a writing section as well that they get scored on. That is the one that most of us, if you went to a four-year institution, that's probably the one you're most familiar with. They do just have that additional writing, and the state has us doing that as well. Once Alicia links this after we're done, anything that you see in red on here is a live link. This link is out to Wise-Public, where you can see the front-facing public data for Somerset and any other school district that receives state funding in the state. So you can run comparatives and look at all those pieces. That would be an easy one-stop if you wanted to do a little bit more. So that's what we do that we're mandated to do by the state. That doesn't include some of those smaller interim assessments and the screeners that we run with kids just to work on our day-to-day instruction. This is the big standardized one that we must give each year to receive our funding. All right, so lots of changes. So I get to take a new job and then get to explain a whole lot of changes that are new. Some of the biggest pieces that you're going to see if you received a report specifically on any of them is they have new descriptors. Last year, formerly our descriptors were beginning, below basic, basic, proficient, and advanced. They switched to a growth mindset language. So our top tier, our top quartile is still advanced. Meeting, which means they are working toward that standard. They're meeting the standard for grade level and beyond. If they're approaching, they have the knowledge and skills, but they're almost there. They're not quite at grade level for future learning. And then developing, they need some significant support with that. So when DPI looked to change out those descriptors, they were looking for something that had more of a growth mindset. Okay, so you're not there yet, you're approaching those knowledge and skills, so they made that decision. I was actually chosen last spring to fill out a survey for which kind of language I felt would fit best, so they took random samplings from all over the state. I'll be honest, I don't really remember if these are the exact ones that I chose, but this is where the state decided to land. So when
we report out. We used to say proficient and advanced, now it's students who are meeting the knowledge and skills necessary at grade level, or they're advanced and they have a really solid piece about it. So that was a really big change, and that's a change for the forward, for the pre-ACT secure, and the ACT. Okay, they didn't just do it for just the forward exam, that's all of those descriptors. On the forward exam, so it was a new design this year for our tests, and it was based on the standards revisions that took place for the Wisconsin Academic Standards. In math was 2021, and ELA, the standards were revised in 2020. So when those revisions took place, the state then gave districts 3 years to implement them, to make sure that teachers were teaching to the level of that standard. And then this past year, 2024, was the first year that we were formally assessed on them. And so what the scores that you'll see, and that the principals will be talking about, are based on those newest standards, okay? In addition to that, the ELA test format was changed. So prior to this year, our students had 4 parts to their ELA test. They had a reading part, an English language arts part, a listening and speaking part, and then a big writing part called a text-dependent analysis, which was where you read and then you wrote a big, like 5-paragraph essay. Well, that eats up, as you can imagine, a lot of time. I mean, just in proctoring, some of our students took like 3.5 hours to write that, which isn't an awesome thing. So this year, they changed it so that we have now a separate like reading score. So they added additional reading questions to give a separate reading score under English language arts. And then there were 2 sections for language arts and writing that were focused on more of your grammar, some of those skills, as well as a short write task for each of those spots. So the test went from 4 sections down to 3, but these 2 combined, the 2 sections on the language arts and writing, were just a little bit longer than what they were previously, and then they removed the speaking and listening, the listening portion of it from the exam. So the forward exam design did look different this year for our students and our teachers. With the change in the exam and what they were assessing, they also changed the scores and the score ranges for math and English language arts only. Science and social studies are still the same cut scores. So they brought educators together from all over the state, from a very wide variety of, demographic from all over, and they came through and read and went through all their things and created different cut scores. So previously, our ELA and math scores were done on a 3-digit score. Now they're done on a 4-digit scale score. Okay, so they felt like it was more specific in that manner, and you're going to see, you're not going to see the cut scores through the principal's work, but if you're interested in learning more about it, again, anything that's in red, it's clicking right to it. If you click on the link that's there, it's going to take you right to the cut scores, so you'll be able to see it. If you want to learn more about the forward exam design, you can click right there, it'll take you right to it, okay? And then for pre-ACT secure and ACT, their cut scores, scale scores, and benchmarks were also reset this past year, over the summer, okay? I want to be really clear on when they set these. They are Wisconsin specific for our accountability here in Wisconsin. They do not match the national ACT and pre-ACT secure cut scores, all right? So when the group got together, very similar to what they did here, they did the very same thing here, but they're Wisconsin specific. So if you go out to the ACT website, you will see something different. And actually, if you click right here on those 2, you'll see Wisconsin, and then you can also see what the national pieces are. Does that make sense? Okay. So I just wanted to be sure and clear on that one, because our cut scores did change. So because of that, we have to look at our data a little bit differently this year. Usually we like to look at trend data over time, right? Are we making gains or are we not? With these new cut scores in all these spaces, the only space that we can look at how have we gone from year to year is science and social studies, okay? So I really want to caution you, if you do go out and do a little digging, that, looking at 2024 versus 2023 and ELA, you're not going to be able to draw any comparisons, because how we were measured in 2023 is different than how we were measured according to the cut scores in 2024. We can though still use it to look at the effectiveness, because how did we do with our revised standards, against those revised standards, because that was new. We can still look at how did we do against the state average, right? Because kids all over the state took the same exam last year, so how did we do against that state average, okay? We can still look at and make sure, are the resources that we're using, is the professional development that we have great for our teachers so they're able to implement and do the job at the rigor level of the standard, okay? So I just want to really caution you, we like to look at how we're doing trends over time. Last year's kind of a fresh start, right? Like it's a new baseline for us, and so we will grow and make changes from there. Are there still spaces where we look and we're making changes? Absolutely. But as far as like trying to compare to 23 to 24, we can't do that because of these new cut scores. Does that make sense? Okay. That was kind of a lot. Questions?
So the DPI, the argument is that by a lot of people that they lowered the standards.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So,
but it's not in science, is what you're saying.
so science and social studies cut scores remained the same.
All right.
Because they did not, their change happened, I want to say 18 or 19, they made it, was it 18, 19, I think, that their cut scores changed based on the different standards. You know, that is what is being said. We were formally aligned to the NAEP, which is the national one, which has extremely high standards, so we can only do and use what DPI is giving us, whether, you know, we agree with it or not. So you'll see where there was maybe some artificial growth. I don't want to say that because kids still grew, but did the scores get changed? Absolutely, they did this year. So, but it still gives us information because we can look at it against how we did against the state. And if we're not kind of keeping that same above average above the state, that's a space for us to ask some questions. Okay, well, with that, we'll turn it over to Jessie, who's going to talk to you about everything.
Okay. Well, hello, everyone. It is so awesome to be back. So nice to formally meet the new faces that I haven't met, and great to see the old faces as well. So I'm going to chat a little bit about the My Savers screener. So talk a little bit about kind of what it is and why it's important. So My Savers screener, I guess, first of all, it's a screener that all of our 4th through 12th graders take unless they are opted out. However, not many students are opted out. We had a 97% participation rate, which is amazing. That's awesome to see that we are gathering some data on some really, really important information for our 4th through 12th graders. When we think about the My Savers, we'll talk, I think it helps a little bit to kind of understand what it's not. It's not a screener that assesses mental health. It is not a screener that looks at different kinds of suicidal ideation or anything like that, or anything kind of related to Youth Risk Behavior Survey. It is really, it's targeting these 3 areas that are skills that are really related to when we have some of these basic foundational skills, it helps to lead to success in the classroom. It kind of helps support that academic achievement. So it's 19 questions. It looks at social behaviors. You can see what it's looking at there. Different academic behaviors, right? So how are our students, executive functioning skills? How are they able to plan and prioritize and organize themselves? And then different emotional behaviors. So, are they worried about things? Are they having kind of a positive attitude towards school and their classmates? Things like that. So really, it's a tool. Students take it themselves, 19 questions, maybe 2 to 3 minutes, giving us some really, really important information. Just like we would gather information for, reading or math, it helps us multiple times a year to see where are students struggling. This is the same thing. It allows us to identify the students that are maybe lagging in some of these other skills that if we can put a plan in place to help support them, then we're going to see some more success in the classroom for that academic achievement. So yeah, and really why it's important also is to have that data for us as educators, right? We can use it, we can look at it, we can say, where are our students falling in some of these areas? A lot of times, classroom teachers, school counselors, they know maybe who some of these students are that are struggling, but a lot of times also we might have students that they're identifying that, man, I'm feeling kind of like my organizational skills aren't up to par, or I'm feeling like I'm not connecting to classmates in in the classroom, outside at recess. So it really does allow us to kind of identify some of this and then put a plan in place. It holds us accountable to say, okay, these are our kids that we need to maybe have a separate plan for, and then make sure that that plan is working. So that's a little bit about it. Principals will talk about their individual scores for each of their grades in their schools, but do you have any questions for me? Short and sweet.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, if I can figure this. Help me, Sarah. The thing's worn off. Okay. So sadly, in my opinion, but we have a brand new format for our assessments, and so we're really only gonna compare ourselves to the state. So if you look at English Language Arts, our 3rd and 4th graders took this assessment, 61% of our state students were meeting or advanced. That is, the state was at 52.2%, so we are higher than the state, which is good news, and that's where we're looking to be higher than the state. Looking at my subgroups though, my students with disabilities, their meeting in advance was 20.7, and our economically disadvantaged were 51.9. So you can see that group of students, our students with disabilities, are not performing where we would like them to be, and that is an area of focus for us this year, for sure. In math, same format, the format didn't change, but we had the new math standards. So we, in math, 58.3% of our students were meeting or advanced, and the state was at 54.3. So again, we were higher than the state. Our students with disabilities were at 31% meeting or advanced, and our economically disadvantaged were meeting or advanced 42.6. So again, our economically disadvantaged students are outperforming our students with disabilities. Now with science and social studies, yes, they didn't change, but remember, only my 4th graders take it. So to look across, it's really not growth. We can look at that to assess programming, but student growth you really cannot identify with this. So in science, meeting or advanced was 55.6%. The state was at 51%. And in social studies, our meeting in advance was 64.6%, and the state was 54.9%. So we're proud to be above the state in all 4 of our tested areas. So what are our areas of growth and focus? Well, we continue to not be happy with where we are in ELA and wanting to grow. So we're going to continue to develop our skills in Tier 1. Still working on science of reading, still working on the final 5 of the top 10 teacher tools that I talked to you about last year. Interestingly, MyView, our new reading curriculum, had brand new updated teacher's manuals and student books. So we rolled all those out. So we're only in the 2nd year of MyView, but we have new things with that. We have UFly through K through 2, which we talked with you about last year. And we added Heggerty Bridges, which is Heggerty's phonics program, in our 3rd and 4th grade to support the phonics work in 3rd and 4th grade. And then in math, we have a brand new math curriculum. Our teachers are so excited. We adopted math expressions. So the work we're doing right now is taking a look at our essential standards, and do we have the correct essential standards identified to do the work to meet what's needed for our kids. So our building goal this year, you remember we were at 61%, our building goal is by June 2025, we will increase achievement and growth to 65% in ELA, as measured by the Wisconsin Forward exam. Other areas of continuation and celebration for us, we continue to be a responsive classroom school. Every student starts their day in a morning meeting. We continue our work with restorative practices, doing problem solving circles, school-wide circles. We practice mindfulness. We have movement breaks several times throughout our day. In my 4th graders that took the MySabers, 90% of them were at or above the FastBridge benchmark for MySabers. And then this fall, our student survey, this is probably hard to see from where you are, but there are adults in the building that will help me. 99.78% of the kids said yes. So we're really proud of that. Adults at this school treat all students with respect. 96.73% said yes, I agree with that. And I feel safe at school, 92.81% said yes. Questions about the elementary school? Yes?
What grade levels take the
Student survey?
Yeah.
All grade levels.
So it's pre-K through 4?
And it's, Oh, I'm sorry, did you say My Savers?
Well, yeah.
My Savers is only fourth grade students.
So
Only fourth
then
grade.
this-
This is our student survey where it was
Ah.
yes or no. Teachers read it to them, yes, I agree, no, I don't agree.
So that's different.
Yes.
Okay. But the fourth
My
graders-
Savers is the one that Jess just talked about with the 17 questions and,
And the fourth graders take both of these.
yes.
So that's your culture, climate, belonging
Yes,
survey.
I'm sorry if I was not
Yep.
clear about that.
Nope.
This is our
Okay.
student survey, yep.
Mhm.
And this is the one we really can see to kind of see if there's areas, because we can disaggregate it by teacher, by students, and kind of see if we have areas where we need to be doing some focus.
Okay.
Yeah,
So, the fourth grade takes the My Savers. Do you do the screeners for K through third? That's on Fastbridge, those
The
screeners
teacher
that
ones.
teacher takes
Yes.
the Savers? So you are able to get some of that data
Right.
if you need it for,
Yep.
for. My other question was that you had mentioned that the numbers aren't where they at for students with disabilities, and then mentioned, some of the curriculum that you're doing. Is it the same type of curriculum that then students with disabilities are getting within the classroom, or has the curriculum or intervention materials changed to target those?
so our students kind of get both. We do co-teaching, so our special ed teachers come into the classrooms, and so they are still getting the same curriculum at their grade level appropriateness, but then the teachers are in there to help support as needed with that. Is that my answer?
Yeah, or I guess I'm more
Yeah.
so, if that's that target group, then what's the plan?
Mhm.
You
So
know,
we're working
is there
really-
changes within those intervention curriculums that can
Right.
be made to really support that?
And we're really examining, do we have the right interventions? Are our interventions matching the needs? Each one of our special ed teachers is a part of a PLC and really offering their expertise, what they see for their students. And that's why it's part of our plan this year. It's like, we need to do something. Because, I'm happy with, not happy, but we're, seeing good growth, but not happy with what's happening with our students with disabilities. Other questions?
Can you forward these slides
Yes.
to us in email?
So my understanding is Alicia is sharing them with
Okay.
everybody.
Great.
Joe?
Figure out the one up.
The ones worn off.
All right. So first slide here is a lot of data, just like you've seen from Pam for the elementary. On the left-hand side, you can see all of our achievement rates, where we fall in every subject. Anywhere from the upper 50s to the low 70s. In all areas, we do score above our state average, and like Sarah mentioned, we can't go longitudinal this year as much, but we can definitely look at where we fall compared to their peers in the state. When you break some things out and disaggregate a little bit, English language arts, a trend that we mentioned that Pam was seeing too, our students with disabilities are performing 4.1% below their peers in the state. At the same time, our students are economic disadvantaged are performing 6.6 above their peers in the state. And we see a similar trend in math. And so looking at that data, those have been discussions across our grade levels, working with our support staff, working with our special ed staff, our case managers. How can we do a better job to move that group along with everybody else? So that's a trend we can see just this year versus the state. Areas of growth and focus, and we took that data and broke it down and get to our 90-day plan. One thing, we looked at our behavior data, we looked at our academic data, and a couple things popped out to us. And the first one there is, how can we get our students more engaged in the classroom? How can we get them more engaged throughout the whole period, to get them into more meaningful learning opportunities, to get them set to build that knowledge. And a couple big ones that popped out when we looked at our data was key ideas and details along with vocabulary development. And as we talked as a group, as we're building our building goal, those areas do impact every academic area. And you might say, well, how? Well, I've watched math class where they're taking a word problem, we'll call it, and they're breaking it into what does that mean and how can I write it out so it looks like numbers with operations. That's key ideas, that struggles for me. Key ideas and details along with that vocab development. So we're doing those across the board. So we're looking internally a little bit, what are we doing well? how can I apply that to my classroom if it's not math or it's not ELA? And then implementing those things along with other professional learning we're doing, and then well, how is our practice improving? All of those things lead to our goal by June 2025. Our professional learning community will identify and implement instructional strategies that promote staff collaboration with a focus on student engagement, vocabulary development, and identification of key ideas and details in order to grow proficiency rates at 5% across the board. So if we go back to here, we're looking to move every one of those. And along with the work we're doing with how we're balancing out where we got some areas to work on here. So again, took that data, pulled it apart, where can we do better, how can we do it better to get all kids moving along at a great rate. Some celebrations, areas of focus. We mentioned the My Savers in the middle school, 83% of our kids meet the benchmark. Along with that, one of my strong beliefs is if kids are connected to school, they feel that someone cares about them, and whatever that connection is, they're going to perform better academically. And some stats that stuck out for me in our culture and belonging survey is 90% of our kids feel safe always or most of the time in our building. If our kids feel safe, they're going to be successful. 90% feel teachers care about them always or most of the time. 92% see kind behaviors always or most of the time. Building on those, we will continue to use restorative practices in an academic setting as well, where we're doing some circle discussions to build knowledge within and share. Our advisory is based on top 20 principles as a guide as we're building our culture in our building. We're working on students' mental habits, those skills they're going to take beyond to every subject and beyond our building to the high school, along with some of that executive functioning skills. And then just the last statement, how can we continue to build that culture in our building where kids love being there so they can be successful? Questions you have for me? Thank you.
All right, so at the high school level, we're navigating different types of assessments. So at the 9th grade level, we have the pre-ACT. 10th grade, it's pre-ACT, and then you also throw in the Wisconsin Forward, which is social studies. And then at the junior level, you throw in the ACT. So we have different points of data here that we'll talk about. First, I want to talk about our Wisconsin Forward exam with our 10th graders with social studies. We've seen routinely that our group of 10th graders has performed significantly above the state when it comes to meeting in advanced. Last year was no different. 69.4% of our students scored meeting or advanced, compared to the state at 42.9. That's a significant large margin over the state performance. If you dive into students with disabilities, we performed 25% higher than the state did as well. So not 25% more meeting in advance when you compare what our students with disabilities were at compared to the state. We were 25%, we were at 25%, the state was at 13.1. Diving into the pre-ACT secure, with English and math, grades 9 and 10, we were higher than the state average in both meeting and advance in every single category. The one where we were not was students with disabilities. We were slightly below when it came to math in 10th grade, but a lot to celebrate within that in terms of meeting and advance. Composites in English, grade 10, math, grade 9 and grade 10, we were also higher than the state composite there as well. When it comes to the ACT, our overall composite last year was a 19.3. If you look at our 10-year average at Somerset, our 10-year average has been a 20.17. What's not factored into that 19.3 is that's just factored on that one test day in March when that's taken. We have several kids last year that took it that day and then ended up taking it again either in April or in May and saw significant increases in that score. So this particular score that you see here, I wouldn't say is fully accurate with what they actually ended up performing over time with that. Some things that we saw within this, ELA, we were right above the state with ELA overall. Our English score was just below the state. Reading was right in line with the state, and our writing was above the state as well. When it came to math, we were slightly above the state as well. When it came to meeting in advanced percentages, we were just below in English and in math. Science, above the state in science and in STEM. And I think it's important when we look at our ACT score to compare one year to the next. It's hard to look at that because each class is different and where they've performed over time. So when we're looking at this internally and trying to measure that, we're trying to look at where has this group, where are we predicting them to perform, and then can we get them to grow as well. So our areas of celebration focus, so Wisconsin Forward performance, when you look at our local level growth and then our comparison to the state and students with disabilities performance, we feel really good about what we saw with that group. We've seen it over several years and last year was no different. Our pre-ACT secure, our growth performance, and then our score versus the state, and again, students with disabilities performance compared to the state. And at the ACT, our scores were either above or at the same level as the state in ELA, reading, writing, math, science, and STEM. And one thing that I think is, it doesn't show up in a score necessarily. We have this knowledge internally from seeing it on the day-to-day, but some of our departments and teachers that are really doing a good job of monitoring student progress, having a really good idea of where our students at coming in at the start of the school year, and then using intentional pre-assessments to track that, and going into testing to have an idea where should our kids be landing. When we've seen people pilot and be intentional about what they're doing with that, we're seeing really good results. So now it's how can we take that and how can we expand that to our other departments. So that's a lot of the work that we're going to be focusing on with our department. Which leads us into our areas for growth and focus with this. Our tier 1 instruction being really data driven as we're making those decisions, leads into our building goal here. By June 2025, all students will show growth on state and local assessments as it relates to reading, writing, and interpretation by 5%. You might ask, well, what does that mean? We've identified as a building multiple different data points that we can say, okay, at the beginning of the year, here's where the kid is, at a midway point, and then at the end of the year to try to measure that growth throughout those different areas and across multiple content areas. Some other areas to celebrate, so our climate, culture, and belonging survey that we gave this fall here, 95% of our students feel connected to at least one adult in the building, or multiple adults. 95% of our kids feel safe at school, and when we dive into that, the 5% that didn't, we asked the follow-up questions of like, okay, why don't you feel safe at school? What makes you say that? Just so we can get a better idea. And what we were finding is a lot of it actually had to do with national news and national events that are happening, not necessarily things happening at Somerset per se. 95% teachers understand what I need to learn and how to be successful. 88% proud to be a Somerset Spartan. 81% involved in sport clubs and or other school activities. This is one that we plan to drill down into also because, okay, so we have 19% of our building that's not involved. What types of things could we offer to help engage them then? That was interesting, just going through some of that data, that when kids say that they weren't involved, some of the reasons that they aren't, it's because they have jobs, or they might be involved in a dance studio or a club sport that they're involved in something, it's just not through the district per se. And then 80% of classmates respect one another. And then with the My Sabers, all grade levels were above benchmark, and 87% as a building. So with this, for our areas of focus, continue to emphasize relationships through our advisory. That was one change we made from last year to this year. We start our day with advisory for a soft landing into the start of the school day, having a consistent adult for our kids to start their day with, and then the idea is for them to move through each grade level. If I'm a 9th grader this year, I have the same advisory teacher next year in 10th grade, 11th grade, and then 12th grade to really develop that good relationship with a consistent adult in our building. Deeper analysis into where our students feel they are seeing disrespect amongst their peers. This is one where we've got good data at each specific grade level. So as a building leadership team and within our building, developing action steps to help promote and improve respect amongst peers. Gather further information from students who are not participating in anything right now. That's what I spoke to a little bit earlier. Trying to maximize grade level meetings and activities this year through advisory, and just some flexibility within our schedule. We've utilized a thing called Spartan Academy, where we've identified kids needing to help develop skills that maybe aren't showing up, and helping them be successful during the school day, and continuing to prioritize student belonging in our building. So with that, our second building goal is by June of 2025, 80% or more of students will feel that their classmates respect each other. You might say, well, when you start off the year at 80%, why is this your goal? We had actually developed this goal before the school year started, and we gave this baseline, knowing what our end result was last year. It was not where we wanted it to be. And even within the current 80%, there are a couple grade levels that would say it's really strong right now, but then other grade levels where it's a lot lower. So we really want to make sure that we're not seeing a dip. Last year when we gave our initial one to when we gave our last one, we did see a dip, and we want to ensure that that does not happen again.
Trent, do you mind if I stop for a second? So is there a couple of different questions that are asked to establish that answer for the feeling of respect between classmates? Is it just a question as do you feel like you're respected by your classmates, or is there more? Are there other questions that are asked?
That's the only questions asked. And then the follow-up question is asking for where are you seeing disrespect amongst your peers, just so we can try to drill down to see where our kids are seeing that.
I guess to me it's a little troubling when you see 80%. It seems, that's, obviously you've listed it as something to work on, right?
Yeah, and last year our number was lower, so that's why we started off with here. Obviously, with all of these, you want them to be at 100%. That's kind of the initial step this year.
What was the number last year, percentage? Do you remember?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
That we can get that information as well. Okay.
That's all
All right, thank you.
Who am I passing that to, Alicia?
I'll take it.
Lots of info. Any other immediate questions? You might have some later, which is fine, but at least kind of debriefing the initial conversation of what the state assessment data look like. As I mentioned, I think the last meeting, so the next part of this will be reporting out on the report card. It's still embargoed, which is why it's not part of the presentation tonight. So more than likely the work session in December, we'll be able to bring that public.
So this information that was presented tonight will be attached to the agenda?
Yep, yep.
Great. So anybody can go to the agenda and see it.
All right, we good? Bruce, can I
Yep.
keep moving?
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Superintendent report. Go ahead.
Okay, so I have multiple pieces of info here, lots of information. So I will start with the parent school calendar survey. So I sent that out last week to parents of students in grades JK through 11. Closed it this afternoon, so I had 491 responses, which is awesome. I asked questions about topics such as professional learning days, a question about spring break, asking some information about kind of the day that we've tacked on, maybe coming back from a holiday break, making that next day back a professional learning day and just getting some information about that. Asked about staggered start, and then the very bottom was basically just an open-ended thoughts, comments, what other kind of ideas and things. So I started to go through it, certainly haven't been through the whole thing yet, but some really good information. A few things that I wasn't surprised about, and a few things that I was like, oh man, that's a really great idea. So more to come on that, but kind of the next step in terms of the calendar development. Tomorrow afternoon we have our first staff calendar committee meeting. So as a staff and as a group, we'll go through the survey results, come up with some information that we want to survey staff and get feedback from staff about some components of the calendar. And then eventually a recommendation will come to the board, the work session in January. So more to come, but 491 responses that exceeded my expectations. So thank you if you filled it out. Questions about calendar? Good there? Okay. So the next topic came up actually last year. We had a couple conversations about really kind of wanting to gauge the board's support for having some potential flexibility and autonomy for staff on professional learning days. So wanted to kind of bring that back. You know, as an admin team, we've eyed up 1 or 2 days where we think that this might be an option for staff as we're kind of mapping out topics, workload, those kinds of things. As I mentioned the last time that this got brought up, which I think again was last year at some point, many schools have started to use these kinds of things as some, you know, kind of recruitment, retaining type tools. Nothing that would be done certainly every PD day, but I do think there are some options where, based off of what we're doing for professional development, that if we gave staff some opportunity to either do that work in the building or potentially virtually. Before I went ahead and did that, I wanted to get some feedback from the board in terms of, is that something on some level you would support? I brought it back because that was the feeling that I got last time that this came up, but didn't want to move forward with anything until we had a discussion here. Or maybe you need more information, which is okay too, but wanted to at least put it on the table.
I would say just some more information maybe on what that actually entails. How many
Sure.
days, what are they doing? I mean, it's not just a day off.
Right.
So like how are you gonna hold people accountable? Be online or
Yep.
what kind of stuff you can do? I'm all for it if as long as it's structured right.
Yep. Okay.
So school's in session during this, or no?
These are professional learning days, so these are days that students aren't here.
I mean, my concern would be, you know, daycare, or somebody being able to watch their kids. It's, you know, you throw that on top of a snowy year like we had a couple of years ago, like.
So these are days that are already on our calendar as professional development days. We're not adding any days.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. It's just looking a little bit differently about potentially giving staff some options when appropriate. And it's not always appropriate. There's many days where we've got a full day start to finish that it would have to be in person, so. But maybe that's a good start, is bringing it back next meeting with some more details. At least.
Yeah, just what are
No?
you looking for?
Okay. Okay, any other questions on that before I move?
Well, when we list it on the agenda for the next meeting, can we put discussion possible
Sure.
action? So that if we have enough information, we can
Yep.
make a motion on that?
Okay. Okay, so the next thing I have, leadership cohort pilot. So I had heard about this idea from a superintendent in a different part of the state that essentially put together a community leadership group where the group is a good diverse combination of people that have kids in the school, people that don't, maybe 1 or 2 board members, 1 or 2 staff members, really to bring a group together once per month, talk about and develop as a group what are some topics the group would like to talk about and discuss, have kind of a good structure and an outline about what the group is, what the group isn't, and really start to kind of talk about what are some action steps as a group that we could discuss related to very specific topics that are maybe relevant right now to our district, and how do we start kind of tackling some of those things. When the superintendent that I was speaking with kind of walked through this with me, their district has now done this multiple years in a row. They have people basically begging to be a part of it because of the action and impact that they've seen. The intent is not get a whole bunch of people together that just love everything about the district. It's really identifying what are some big topics that we want to talk about, learn about, dive into, and start having basically some healthy conversations about how do we tackle some of those things. This superintendent, this is not something I'm married to, but did a book study as well. So they met once per month, and the first half of the time that they met, they kind of walked through this book study, and the second half was really talking about, again, topics, wanting to bring information to the group, where maybe an administrator would give a presentation on something, or a teacher expert, or really, again, kind of the basis of those topics would be decided upon by the group. This particular superintendent put out a Google form, and people had to apply to be a part of it, and there were some questions of kind of why is this something you'd be interested in, and would you be available to meet once a month? It really can't be something that I'm looking for people to kind of float in and out of. It's kind of a commitment. This district did it for a year. I don't want to wait until September. I'd like to pilot something starting in January. So maybe it's starting with a smaller group initially and just kind of work out some of the kinks. But I think just based off of lots of things that I've heard over the last couple months in social media, that this might be at least a good start of having some conversations around the table in a healthy, productive way. Knowing that the table should be filled with a variety of opinions and thoughts and perspectives and beliefs, but I'd like to try something. I don't know if this is going to be a magic bullet, but I'm kind of sharing it really just as informational. I'm still kind of working on the details and getting it together, but I would like to be able to have this launched by the end of January, and then have this run from January to May of this school year. Bring some information back, maybe fine tune, tweak it. Hopefully the people in that group have such a positive experience that they recommend it for people for the next group, because that's kind of the idea, is that you keep cycling people through every year, if not the same people every single year, to just try to build some capacity within the community about what's happening in our schools. So
my question is, do they report to the board or do they report to you?
So this isn't a board committee, and I wouldn't say they report to me. I would say we collectively have conversations, and then part of this certainly, I would imagine, would be some sort of update to the board of kind of what we're doing, what we're talking about, how things are going. But it's not necessarily what I would consider a decision-making group. It's really, how do we start brainstorming and wrapping our heads around what are some of the big topics that, they're impactful in our district right now. So
I'd be for something like this, but I think it would be important to have the board included. Like you said, if there's 2 board members on it, they can report to the board. I think that'd be important.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea too. I like the book study piece. I think the book study could maybe help kickstart a direction, if to kind of to dive into and dig into.
mm-hmm.
I like the idea of the leadership core piece. The other thing I throw out there is just if it was staff related, like some type of incentive that goes with it for participating in it.
Mm-hmm.
There's all kinds of municipalities that do things like this leadership councils where in order to advance, you have to go through this process. You learn, you dig, so I like it if it's tied to community and board. Obviously, you can't really incentivize it, but
Yeah.
it's just staff, is it an extra day of vacation, something like that
Mm-hmm.
to help them dig in. So yeah, I'm all for it.
Are you into the details on like how many people you have?
What was the
for this?
first part?
How many people? Like, are you gonna have those details kind of outlined?
Well, it might be dictated a little bit by level of interest. I mean, I don't think this first group, I'm not looking for 100 people, but I need it to be enough where I'd like to have a good, healthy, again, a diverse representation of a wide variety of people. But in my vision, this first pilot group is maybe a little bit smaller than maybe what this could turn into. I also want it to be manageable as we're working out some of the kinks, and so maybe just more to come as I kind of take this last month to kind of figure this out, some of the details. But I assume that this would be something that you would support, but I wanted to at least kind of bring it to this table, and anyone that's listening, we'll have some information out for people that are interested. This kind of goes hand in hand with actually the student leadership pilot. It's literally the same idea, but I want to launch this with students. Starting with high school students, again, kind of going January to May. We do have a couple leadership groups in the building right now, student council, for example, and those kinds of things. But again, I want to make sure that we've got kids from every grade level. We've got males and females. We've got kids that are interested in a variety of things, right? So the premise will be the same, but student voice and kind of all of these things that we talk about is obviously huge. So these are my 2 big action steps that by the end of January we're going to put into action in some way, shape, or form. Might be a little bumpy again as we kind of roll this out, but I think just given the things that I'm hearing and seeing, I think I'd like to try something and at least see if we can get some positive movement around, you know, everyone has the same goal, so how do we have some good conversations to kind of get us there? So, no more, no less. That's it.
I'm excited to see what comes of it.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Anything else with those two things? More to come?
Well, we may have several community members who'd be interested because
Yeah.
we had a group like this for many years in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would say maybe next meeting, I'll be able to kind of outline some definites of if you're interested, here's where you look to fill out the form and, you know, kind of those kinds of things. So, cool. Okay. So the other thing I have is enrollment update. So I'm going to move.
I'm gonna put it tight to the smartboard, so if you stay kind of in the corner, perfect.
Okay. You coming back?
Yeah.
Okay, just checking. Okay, so lots of information here. This also will be linked to the agenda, so anyone can see it and find it. Kind of the good, bad, and the ugly in all things enrollment. So you're going to see areas of celebration. You're going to see areas that we're going to keep talking about. I've hidden nothing. All of the numbers are things you can find on DPI. But I think it's good. This is probably just good timing now that we know Third Friday numbers and some different things, just to kind of get a good update of where are we with enrollment. So I think it's important to kind of start with what is happening in the state of Wisconsin. One thing that I know came up when you guys were doing the listening session summary last meeting was some questions of what's happening across the state, what's happening in other districts, right? So you're going to hear lots of things, but I wanted to start here. So overall in Wisconsin, so not necessarily K-12 yet, that'll be the next slide. Population is growing but slowing, concentrating in major cities, so some of the outlier smaller cities are seeing significant drops in population. The population in our state is aging, fewer school-age children. 2/3 of Wisconsin school districts have declining enrollment. I should probably point out any of these slides right now you're going to see with the University of Wisconsin-Madison in the corner. That's where this information is from. Okay? So then we drill down to K-12. So looking at K-12 student population in our state. So steadily decreasing. Also finding that families are starting to concentrate in major cities versus the outlier small cities. Our K-12 enrollment is more racially diverse than ever before. And we're seeing lots of K-12 students attending a wider variety of publicly funded school types. That probably shouldn't be a surprise. I had almost all of these exact same things in the presentation I did last March because it still remains true. We know that there are lots of options now, K-12 public and beyond, but I'm just focusing on K-12 public right now, for families and students to choose, much more than ever before. So if you look at this kind of fancy movement graphic, it shows our Wisconsin population. These are ages, right, 0 to 4, 5 to 9, all the way up to 85 plus, and you can see what's kind of happening from 1960 all the way projected to 2040. And I want you to kind of take a look at, as you're watching this a few times, what's happening specifically at the bottom, because that's where our school-age children are. What is happening over the course of the years and where it's projected all the way out to 2040, okay? You can see it starts all the way out here and just gradually starts to shrink. You're going to see a common theme that I have is that there are fewer children available in our state, right? That is going to account for much of the decreased enrollment across the state that I'm going to talk about. So you've heard me talk before about birth rates. So these are birth rates in Wisconsin from 2000 to 2022. You can see that also is starting to steadily decline. We know that people are having fewer children. That will eventually catch up and is already having an impact on K-12 education. Looking at Wisconsin public school enrollment. So again, I want to keep stressing that this is not private, this is simply our public schools. From 2007 to 2022, you can see where we've started all across the state, where we were in 2022. Looking at a 10-year trend from 13-14 to 22-23, 69% of districts in Wisconsin experience enrollment declines, which is 10% higher than the previous year before. Again, you're gonna see my theme over and over is that the enrollment conversation that we're having in Somerset is not unique to us. It doesn't mean we can't talk about it, doesn't mean we better not address it, but we are not an outlier when it comes to declining enrollment. So here are some projections from 2023 to 2032 for Wisconsin public schools. As you can see, the line is not going in the right direction, right? It is anticipated that we are going to continue to lose in K-12 public schools more and more children over time. Some of that is because of greater options and choice. Some of that is because there are simply fewer children, right? So if you kind of take a look at there at the bottom here, you can see some of the decline that they grouped in terms of grades. So looking at a decline for our K-5 population by 7% over the next chunk of years, right? Our students in grades 6 through 8, a decline by 6%, and our students in grade 9 through 12, a decline by 8%. Okay, now I want to drill down to Somerset in particular, okay? So these are some definitions that I provided the last time I did this, right? Because as I said, I think it was even the last meeting, when it comes to student enrollment, it is not black and white. Our numbers sometimes change every single day, based off of a student that withdraws, a student that enrolls, right? We have lots of students in our district that we can't count as full-time FTE students. Our 4Kers are counted different than our regular students. It is fairly complex. So I am going to keep it fairly 50,000 foot, but I'm happy to answer questions that you might have. So when you hear me talk about head count, this is literally the bodies of children that we have sitting in our seats every day, okay? When you hear me say pupil count, it is all of this, and then it factors in all of our open enrollment in and open enrollment out. It also starts to factor in, again, some of those students that we can't necessarily count in our head count, but we can count in our pupil count. Typically, pupil count is a higher number than head count, okay? One example I will give you, we have, and I think I mentioned this last time, we have 3 students at the high school right now that are full-time college students. They do not receive any education in the Somerset School District. So we cannot count them here, but we get to count them here. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so district enrollment trends. So you can see from 2019 to 20, all the way to this is current, and this was our September head count. So this was our 3rd Friday count. So when you hear us talk about 3rd Friday, this is it, okay? So looking at where we were, right, pre-COVID, after COVID, and now here we are. This number did not surprise me because we are graduating larger classes than we are currently bringing in. So this wasn't a shock to me. So last year we graduated a class of 114. Our 4Kers right now are at 81. Typically our 4K classes have sat around 95, 98. Remember, we've had conversations that we've talked to you about we might need to add another section. This year in particular, our 4K class is very low, okay, which I'll talk more about in a minute. Okay, so this was our September head count. This was our September pupil count. Again, you can see this number is higher because we get to count more kids in our pupil count. Okay, so looking at the trend, again, I'm not going to go through every single number, but obviously this will get updated again because we do the same count again in January. We do another head count and another pupil count. Okay? Looking at our homeschool trends. So these are students that are residents in Somerset but are currently accessing homeschooling. So from 18-19 all the way to 24-25, these are current numbers as of 2 days ago. So you can see these are the number of families accessing homeschooling. Kind of a big jump here, not a surprise, right? And number of students within these families that are accessing homeschooling. So we have had a bit of a drop, which is great, right? Some of these students do come to our building and access some of our part-time programs, but right now this is kind of what it looks like here, okay?
Shannon?
Yep.
When we have a homeschool student who comes to our building,
Yeah,
do we get to count a percentage of
like this much.
our pupil count?
Yeah,
Does-
barely.
Does it depend on how much time they're here?
Well, they can only access 2 classes,
Okay.
right? So most of the students that are here that are coming onto campus are taking full advantage of those 2 courses.
But it doesn't count as 20%.
No. Wouldn't that be great? See, it's complex, right? All right, so St. Anne's enrollment, this was updated as of, again, 2 days ago as well, so you can kind of see the trend for St. Anne's. I'm not claiming to be an expert on any enrollment trends at St. Anne's other than these are the numbers and these are resident students. So there are other students that attend St. Anne's that don't live in Somerset, right? Those students aren't counted, okay? So obviously a bit of an increase there. Okay, let's talk about open enrollment. So again, from 1920 all the way to current year, this is September open enrollment in. So again, our 3rd Friday count. What students are we getting from other districts? And what students are leaving this district to go someplace else, okay? So for this year, 3rd Friday count, we have 142 students in and 159 students out. So one positive is we've closed the gap a bit, right, which has been helpful for our budget because when we budgeted, we anticipated this to continue to get wider and it shrunk. That's good news, right? Would we love for this number to be smaller? Yes, and I'm going to dive into that in just a second, okay? So you can kind of see the trends over time. I get out of my way here if you can see this. So these are the estimated dollar amounts for 24-25. When we have a general education student either come in or go out, this is either the amount of money that we get in or the amount of money that we have to pay, okay? This might fluctuate a little bit, which is why I have estimated. And when we have students supported by an IEP, it's this amount that either we pay out or we get in, okay? All right, so this is what I just went over, right? DPI estimated open enrollment tuition, right? General ed, students supported by an IEP. These are our numbers. Again, these are estimated because even as today, I found a student on our open enroll out list that actually is no longer a resident here. So we do as many checks and balances as possible to make sure that we catch some of those. So we got at least one more kind of off our books, which is good. So for 24-25 in our district, these are the estimated tuition payments. So we are paying out this amount. We are getting in this amount. So we are in the deficit about $140,000. Okay? All right, so let's look at when kids are coming in and when they're leaving, where are they coming in from and where are they going? So let's start over here. Kids that are coming into us, so we have 6 students that are in from Amory, right? 12 from Hudson, 80 from New Richmond, 36 from Osceola. I combine Menominee and River Falls, 3 from Central, 3 from St. Croix Falls, for a total of 142. Okay? Students that are leaving us, we have 51 going to Hudson, 70 to New Richmond, 10 to Osceola, 3 between River Falls and Spring Valley, 25 total that are accessing virtual programs. Okay? Which totals 159. Questions there? Okay. All right, so let's take a look at, of the 159 students that are open enrolled out of here, what is the why? Okay, so for the last 2 years, we have kept data on students that have open enrolled out. Why have they left and where have they gone? Okay, might there be some holes and gaps? It's possible. Have I spoken to every single family? I have not, but I can tell you it is a very rare occurrence that we have a student leave that we don't know the why. Whether it's because the parent maybe had a conversation with the teacher, with a principal, maybe it's public on social media, there's lots of ways, right? But we don't have any question marks in terms of why did they go, right? Do we have some work to do potentially about digging a little bit deeper with some families? You bet we do. And I've started that process already. But I want you to take a look at 159 students out, okay? We have 119 that have never set foot here, that have never attended this district. Last March, when I gave this presentation, that number was 118. Okay? So in all likelihood, it is quite possible that these are students that have never had any intention on attending Somerset School District. And when we go through, I mean, we just literally did this today as an admin team. We do this almost weekly. Looking at those kids and trying to get some information. Typically, they're students that live on a border. They're students that are following maybe their parents or their siblings to the school district that their family has kind of always went to, right? Parent job location, we have many students that fall into that category. So 119 that have never set foot here. Then we have 23 that fall into the category of what I would consider family choice. So because of some family circumstance, they are attending school someplace else. These are actual reasons from families. So lack of daycare, lack of affordable housing options in Somerset, student mental health and or physical health. Often those are families that are accessing virtual. A family move, a parent job location. Again, as I mentioned, seeking a flexible option to support family circumstances or potentially seeking a faith-based education. So these are things that, again, based off of that family and what works best for them in those circumstances, they are going someplace else, okay? These two pots, let me back up, I'll go to this one. And then 17 that we've been able to flag based off of data and information that have left the district due to dissatisfaction with the district. So something happened that the family said, I cannot go here, I need to move to a different district, okay? I tried to be very vague. I don't want to unintentionally identify any families, but these are typically the most reasons. And some of these families, you know, it's been multiple years since they've been gone, right? But frustrations with COVID, sports and athletics related, concerns with peers and bullying, and potentially staff, frustrations with staff, okay? So when we look at kind of this big pot, right? This is typically something that we will have little to no control over. Typically something we have little to no control over. And this is something we're diving into, right? There may be components of this that we also don't have a ton of control over, but how do we navigate this section here? Okay, how do we get more information? How do we be more proactive if possible? I will tell you the reality is there are times also where families are leaving and we find out after the fact that there was a concern that we had heard nothing about. It's also happened in the opposite end. We've had lots of conversations with families and we haven't been able to resolve issues and families end up leaving. I do not want any family that lives in Somerset to have a negative experience in our district. I want this number to be 0. That'd be my dream. So, we're diving into this a bit. How can we learn more, right? What might that look like? But I want to stress the fact that, you know, open enrollment, especially the last 2 years, I guess I can't speak for what happened previous to I was here, but like this is something administratively that we talk about literally all of the time. Right now, at any time that we get potentially a withdrawal, it doesn't matter what the reason is, and the principals can tell you this, I literally send an email and I say, you need to find out more. What's going on? Why is this family leaving? Sometimes we know, right? Sometimes it's not a secret. More than often we know, but if we don't, because I'm trying to track this and keep as much data that's fresh and accurate as possible. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit, because this came up, of what's happening in other districts. So the next 2 slides are going to show you what's happening in other districts. So again, just like I showed you with us, right? This was the 3rd Friday count for Somerset, the 3rd Friday count for all of these schools in our conference, and 23-24, 3rd Friday count. And I only have our number in here because the rest of these aren't public yet. I know what many of these are because we have discussions as superintendents, but certainly I'm not going to put that in my presentation. So, ignore this for now. I will fill that in when I get it. But if you just look at where some of these districts were in 1920, where they were in 2023-24, and the difference, you can see that what we're experiencing is not necessarily unique, okay? Altoona, quite a bit bigger. They have the luxury of some of their geography. They are gaining lots of kids from Eau Claire, for example, and some of the smaller districts around them that are choosing Altoona, which is awesome. Altoona is a great district. You can see Amory, right, from 1920 to 23-24, down 188 kids. Baldwin, Ellsworth, Osceola, Prescott. Ours obviously has increased a little bit because I've added ours here. St. Croix Central, not a shock. They have a thriving virtual school. They have a ton of kids that come in through open enrollment, so they are on the plus side. And then you can see what's happening across the state, right? Losing over 40,000 kids in public education, okay? So that was our conference. I also grabbed a couple other schools, just again, I thought were at least somewhat close to our size or at least regional. So you can see what's happening with the Eau Claire School District, the Hudson School District, Menominee, New Richmond, Rice Lake, River Falls, Spooner, and St. Croix Falls. As superintendents, we are discussing enrollment literally every month. What is happening? What are you seeing? What are you doing? How are you addressing it? This is a standing agenda item because we're all having the same conversation, clearly, right? Okay? So as I mentioned, as we're talking with area superintendents, so what are some conversations we've had that we're just seeing some regional trends? This is not, I would say, super data-based, other than these are conversations that we're having as superintendents, right? So one thing that we have all talked about and all seen and all trying to figure out, JK and kindergarten classes seem to be significantly lower this year across the board. Our kindergarten numbers are still strong. And we've had a lot of conversations about this, we're still not sure about what happened with 4K. Maybe it was a one-off this year. We'll have to kind of monitor it a little bit more to see if it becomes a trend. Districts seeing, as I mentioned, that we've seen here, larger graduating classes than classes that are coming in. Open enrollment trends, for the most part, for districts are negative. The districts that are showing positive open enrollment are because of a district-run daycare or virtual school. And homeschool numbers seem to be increasing across the region. As I showed you, ours this year decreased, which is good. But again, these are kind of big picture trends, right? And we have 39 schools in our CISA 11, and 31 of them have declared declining enrollment. So again, what we're seeing here, not an outlier. We are not the only district talking about this, trying to brainstorm, trying to problem solve. It's not an excuse, but the reality is that this is a topic that everyone is talking about everywhere, except Altoona and St. Croix Central, right? Okay. So a couple things, I got just 2 more slides here. So summary, so as I mentioned, birth rates are declining. We know that Wisconsin public school enrollment is declining. I think there was a question last time about census information. So we do use and look at our county census, our district census, but we have found over time, it's just really not all that helpful for the way that we need to use the numbers. So I'm going to talk about a way that I'd like to address that in just a second. Our homeschool numbers have dropped. I mentioned graduating class versus incoming classes. Our open enrollment gap has decreased, which is good. We still have more out than coming in. The largest percentage of those students have never attended. And overall, the trends that we're seeing in Somerset match what's happening across the region. So the big question is, this is great, what do we do about it? So here we go. Buckle up, we're ready, all right? All right, so as I'm talking to superintendents, and now this is across the state, right? Like, what are people doing? Specifically, I am interested in how do we get some really good numbers to be able to make projections around things like enrollment by grade, birth rate, housing, demographics. Many districts have used what's called the Applied Population Lab out of UW-Madison. I've been in the district 13 years, and you would probably know if what I'm going to say is true or not. I am not aware that we've done a comprehensive demographic study since I've been here.
Not since you've been here. But
Okay.
we did one,
Okay.
I'm gonna guess now, I would say it's been 20 or 30 years. And I've brought it up many times, but it costs some money. And I think the last time we did it, we might have shared the expense with the village and the township.
Well, this is very specific to school districts. And Osceola just did this. Their superintendent said it's the best thing we've ever done. We've got better information than we've ever had. It's about $4,000, and let me tell you, the research I've done, it's going to be money well spent. So stay tuned, but that's something that I'm going to likely pursue. We've had some conversations about investigating the pros and cons of all-day 4K. Not many schools around us do it. The ones that have would indicate that it's been beneficial for enrollment. There are some unintended consequences of that. How might it impact our school age care program, all those kinds of things. So right now it's literally just in the investigation stage of finding out what might be the pros and cons of looking at that programming, okay? Lots of conversations happening right now around our virtual program. So Sarah, Brandon Berry, and I have met. We've had lots of conversations of what might be some low-hanging fruit for our virtual program to try to keep kids here and maybe grab some of those 25, if possible, back. One of the biggest things that we've talked about is our current program, and this is the way it was kind of set up, it's set by semesters. So it's not flexible in terms of you couldn't enroll in our virtual program tomorrow. You would have to wait until semester, right? For many families that are seeking that option, especially once a school year is started, this becomes a major issue because, well, I need to go virtual for XYZ reasons. I would like to stay here, but literally they can't, so they have to seek something else out. So we've talked about, for second semester, loosening up some of those restrictions we have in place right now. The bigger thing is talking about, instead of using Edgenuity teachers to execute courses, how do we use our own staff? We did that during COVID because Edgenuity at that time didn't have enough people to accommodate all the requests when people were looking to go online and use that. So I sent a survey to our staff last week and just said, fill this out if you have any interest in potentially learning more about what that might look like. And we had 37 teachers that said, I want to learn more and/or I'm in. So this would be a significant cost savings based off of what we currently pay for courses and what we would pay teachers for what I would consider a very generous stipend to do this. This wouldn't be something that would be added on to their current workload. This would be something above and beyond, okay? I'm not prepared today to kind of outline all of the details, but those are the two biggest components that we feel like would be able to flip the switch on some of the virtual things, like almost immediately. Like we just had a family that moved virtual that said, if we could enroll here, we would stay, but we don't have that option. Okay, well, how do we fix that? We basically were like, we need to fix that immediately, okay? Sending an updated survey to families who have open enrolled out, withdrawn, and homeschool families since the end of last year, and potentially beyond, but I need some point to kind of start with. I did this last year. Probably didn't hit all of these groups. Didn't get a real great response, so we're going to try again to see if we can get some more information about, and maybe if we don't have good information right now, or maybe need to update the information we think we have, but reaching out to families just to find out some more information about why aren't you here anymore, what would need to happen to maybe change that, would you consider coming back, kind of all those things. Reaching out to new families, and really finding out, hey, welcome to Somerset. What's your experience been like so far? We're glad you're here. What feedback do you have? We recently gave out, and I don't want to speak for you, but you're not prepared to talk about this, so I'm going to talk about it. We gave a survey to high school students wanting to know, all right, when we talk about courses, as we think about kind of moving into next school year, what are some gaps that we have in our high school that, man, I would really love to have a class on this thing. What might that be? So I know Trent and his team are debriefing that information as they're working with staff and teachers about really using that student voice, because sometimes the adults think we've got all the ideas and students are like, man, we could care less about that class. We really want a class with this, right? They've started to identify some trends, some options that we think will be able to get some good movement there. Okay, I'm almost done. Stay with me. Part two. So I've already been meeting with village officials, getting information on housing, developments, what's happening, what's coming. Good news, hopefully phase 2 of what's happening behind us is going to start somewhat soon. If you drive out by the industrial park, you should see there's a new development going up there as well. The nice thing is that these are a variety of housing options, and housing options that are specifically designed for starting families, that people aren't being kind of priced out of that in terms of families with children, okay? I've had meetings with local realtors, finding out what are you hearing when people are meeting with you and looking at homes in Somerset. What's the feedback, right? I will tell you some of the feedback they have received has been about our community page and what's happening in this room. Okay, easy fix, right? Easy fix. They've also said, I've had lots of families that can't wait to find a house here because they've heard great things about Somerset, right? And kind of everything in between. So trying to kind of keep my pulse on that. Continuing to build on current and create new partnerships within our community. I would love to dive into this next one. I'm not gonna dive too far today, but I think there would be some real power in investigating the interest that this board would have with the village board and the town board, having a joint meeting of like, man, let's put all these heads together and talk about the great things that we should do for our community and our school and find out where that conversation goes. I have no idea what that even looks like, but I put it on the list because I think it could have some power. The last thing I have, some things that other districts are doing. Area districts in our conference have hired people to be communications and marketing people, to literally do nothing but market the district, run Facebook, put all things out, all the places, right? Hired grant writers to be able to bring on some really cool opportunities within your district, trying to find the money. It's there, but often you need people to be able to do that. And the size of our team, that gets really hard. I've had some conversations with Dave about kind of re-looking at community ed, and that is a huge undertaking to really do it and do it well and put a lot of time and energy into what that looks like, but I think there might be some correlation there with all the things that we're talking about. I will tell you that I've had other superintendents say to me, the best thing for our district right now is your community page and what's happening in your board meeting, because they are literally using that when people are coming to tour, because we have people coming to tour to our district too, right? I've had superintendents say to me, this is great, because I will say to them, oh, you're looking in Somerset? Oh, you might want to look at this, you might want to check this out. Those are real things that are happening, right? Those are easy things that we can fix immediately as well. But I also want to make sure we're kind of telling the whole story when we're talking about enrollment, because it is all of these things, 100%, right? It is, the reality is there is also some of this. I have not found another superintendent yet where they are not actively working together in terms of board, community, admin, teachers, staff, whatever that looks like, trying to talk about and navigate enrollment. Okay, that is one of the easiest things that we can do in this room to start really kind of turning some of this around. Okay, as you saw, issues are happening everywhere, right? So what are some things we can control immediately? And I'm not talking about toxic positivity. I'm not saying everything here is perfect. We got things to work on, things to talk about, things to improve 100%. But man, what a turn this could be if we start all heading in the same direction, stop campaigning against how horrible things are here, and man, let's like get to the root of how do we just make it better and work together. That's it, okay? Lots of info. Happy to answer questions. If you need to process and answer questions later, let me know. If you're listening, this will be attached to the agenda. People can look at it. If they have questions when you look at it, let me know. But it's a lot. And we're going to get there.
So, like an observation I've got is
Yeah.
New Richmond -7, and we're what, -70 or something like that, or 65? Where are we at? So New Richmond's numbers are pretty good.
Yeah.
They're just a few miles away. I mean, it's just an observation on my part. And in 2018, they built this huge bridge, $1 billion bridge. It's bringing a lot of people out here from the Twin Cities, and I'm one of them. And there's a lot of growth in this area. I think the district grew about 20% since 2018. So luckily, the mill rate goes down. There's more homes being built. Property values are up. But, you know, when I see New Richmond's numbers, -7, and ours the way they are, and then, you know, you look at St. Croix Central with their academy.
So let me stop with New Richmond. So the biggest thing I hear about New Richmond is housing. They
Okay.
have a wide variety of options that we just don't have as many here.
But again, it's only 5 miles away, and we've got new development here by the schools, and we got another one just north. That's going.
I'm just telling you what I hear. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, St. Croix Central, no doubt. I mean, that's they started that virtual school before COVID. COVID hit, they soared.
So
Right?
the version
Yeah.
we're talking about on the online school is not going all in, we're just talking about partial.
All in would cost literally hundreds of thousands of dollars because they have literally a full staff. They have a principal, they have counselors, they have school psychologists, they have almost 20 teachers that are just dedicated to virtual. It's the most immediate baby step that we can take to at least address something.
But $100,000 if that was invested, maybe we wouldn't get as many. However, we gotta ask ourselves, how many students would that take to make up that difference? Right, so we're talking about an investment.
For sure we are, yeah.
It's an investment, but it might pay off with just not too many students as well.
It wouldn't take many. Mm-hmm. Okay,
So those,
I could tell by the look on your face, Lori, that you had something.
so, I don't know which slide it is, but it was the one where you were talking about, this many never set foot in our district and this many, yeah,
Yep.
all right. So, do you, maybe don't know right now, but maybe you can get, how many of those 119 live on a border? Because
Mm-hmm.
we often have families come to our board meetings and they want to detach their property from our district.
Yeah,
So they end up not being able to do it, but that doesn't prevent them from open enrolling out.
right.
So we are losing those numbers, but there's still property in our district.
Yep.
And we still gain from those property taxes.
Mhm.
So part of that number being higher is because we're not allowing those properties to detach.
Mhm.
And we shouldn't.
Right, and to answer your first, I have no idea how many live on the border per se. I mean, if that's something you want me to dig into, I can, I don't know. For
So-
sure.
And if we did make it a full day pre-kindergarten, it might save, well, it would save us money on the midday transportation, but we'd have to add staff.
Yep.
And I don't know how that would shake out, if it's a plus or if it's a positive number or a negative.
Yep.
But regardless of whether those kids go to school here a full day, the state will still only count them as 0.4.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the idea is that the few districts that offer full-day 4K have indicated that it's been positive for their enrollment from a young age. So I'm not convinced standing right now that it's the greatest idea, but it's on the list of things that, you know, Pam and I have talked about it for maybe 5 minutes at this point, but things to investigate.
Does the St. Croix Central School District allow kids to enroll in and out of their virtual program at will,
Yeah.
anytime?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
The village and township already have joint meetings, I believe, twice a year.
Oh, look out, let's join them. Has that ever happened here? Do you know?
That the school district
Yeah.
joined them, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. I'm gonna look into it.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, thanks. Oh, she said thank you.
All right, item 6, board member concern. Lacey.
This was me, and I just wanna, I guess I'll just dive right into it. I wanna make people aware of a safety issue that happened at the high school. I bring this up as student safety has been an ongoing area of discussion and a large concern among our school, board, and our community. On October 23rd, 2 days following our last board meeting, my son opened his backpack to find a note stating, "Tell your mom to quit school board or you will be hurt." It was a direct written threat with my son's name attached. My husband and I received a phone call from Mr. Probst and the school SRO making us aware of the situation and the steps that were being taken in determining the source of the threat. In a time where parents are constantly on high alert of keeping their child safe, I never imagined that one of my children would get a threat due to the role I play on the school board. To be threatened should not be taken lightly. In my opinion, this comes from the parents. I would believe that very few of our high schoolers are watching board meetings. This is coming from words, what parents are saying. Parents can model positive behavior and reinforce the values of kindness and accountability at home. There's a big difference between speaking your opinion and using that to give a threat of harm. Take it out on me, not on my child. To be 100% clear, our children love going to school in Somerset. We have had wonderful experiences with each of their teachers and our educational process in elementary, middle, and high school. This particular incident, and only this one, has made us question all of that. It has made us question their daily attendance at school. It has made us question where our children will go to school. It has made us question the community in which we live. Somerset, we can do better. The negativity that has been going on with adults and now kids, this is a problem. We as parents are better than this. Once it starts spilling over to our children, this is our problem. Not just in this room, but our entire community. This happened to my child, but this would not be okay if this was with any kid in our school. I want to submit a letter to the board, and I will read that out loud. November 4th, 2024. Dear Somerset School Board, I'm writing this letter to inform you of my resignation from the Somerset School Board. As you are now aware, my son was given a note threatening that he would be hurt if his mom did not quit from school board. I am not resigning on these words alone. I am resigning as this situation has made it very clear to me that my family comes first. My children and their safety are my #1 priority. I will relinquish all of my responsibilities as a board member and current vice president effective at the adjournment of tonight's meeting. I apologize for stepping down from the position that I was elected for. I originally wanted to join the board to be an advocate for not only my kids, but for all of our students. I have a passion for education, and I felt that I could serve our community. Somerset School District is so incredibly important to our family. Having a child in elementary, middle, and high school buildings have made my family proud to be Somerset Spartans. The teachers, administration, and staff had made learning at Somerset a wonderful place to be. I am saddened with the negative tone, generalizations, and misinformation that has been sent out by some community members. As community members and parents, we need to always set good examples for our children, instilling positive values. Our students hear what we say, and they follow our leadership. With the transition of my resignation, please reach out if you need any additional information or questions on my work within the board to ensure a smooth transition. I have also included my personal email address. Thank you.
I see. Okay, all right. Thanks, everybody. All right, we'll move on to the next item. Policy update. Lori, are you going to, Lori or Danny or Ian? We had an update on next,
Yeah,
most recent meeting.
so if you, well, we met, I think it was October 11th, maybe, so it was a while ago. But we went through all of the policies. We met with Ed from Neola, and we asked for administrative input and other input as well from staff members, as was viewed by the committee as necessary to get input from different people in the district. So if you click on the attachment to the agenda, I'm going to go in order of the policies as they're listed here. And the first one had to do with meetings, and the only thing that I had added, and I think Alicia may have already even taken care of this, was to remove the word unless. We changed Oh, so this had to do with the virtually attending a meeting. So, and this, the changes in the language, the new language, it follows our current practices. We currently allow virtual participation, including at closed sessions. So this language is that if you were going into closed session, the board member verbally represents that they're alone in their physical location is secure. The next one, educational goals and expectations. On page 5, there was the addition of other groups of Americans, Hmong Americans, and Asian Americans. On the third policy, 2340, district-sponsored trips. On page 8, there is the addition of language regarding international trips, which aligns with our current practices. Pages 10 through 12, there was additional language regarding licensure, vehicles, provision for all of this aligns with our current practices. Does anybody have any questions on any of these so far? Policy 5200, attendance. On pages 19 to 20, there was a list of additional excusable absences as determined by the school attendance officer that are not granted by law. Ms. Eichten looked at these and she made a comment clarifying that these would not be exempt from the current 10 days per semester allowance. Okay. There's another list above this, and those are the ones that are specifically written out in the state law. Any questions on this one? I don't, nowhere in this policy does it mention anything about the 10 days. I think that's in our student handbook. And I don't know.
It's also in
whether-
state statute, like
So-
10 days is in state statute for compulsory attendance.
Do we need to add anything? I mean, Neola didn't have anything about clarifying about the 10 days. Do you think we should reach out to Ed and ask about that?
I don't know, I'd have to look, because we run everything through state statute, so I don't know if we have to have a policy that further
Well, these
states it,
are
or would just be for,
additional
like,
items.
with these pieces, because that was the biggest conversation we had, was that they would not be exempt from
They
the
would
10
not be
days.
exempt,
Correct,
Yep.
so,
And that was not the intention.
right, good.
So policy 5330 then, the next one, administration of medication emergency care on page 24. The administration by school staff section aligns with our current practices. Page 25, the administration of non-prescription drug products by school staff also aligns with our current practices.
So can I ask about that one? So in here it says that students, I think we talked about before, can't have Tylenol or ibuprofen with them, that only can come from the health office, is that correct?
Yeah, that is our practice and has been for many years.
So students just can't have it with them and take it?
They're not supposed to.
But they aren't also giving it out in the offices anymore, that was new this year.
Yeah.
So if it has, so how we run, so for years, no, you're not supposed to have any kind of like ibuprofen or Tylenol on your person. Even like inhalers, unless in the need, like kids will pick their inhalers up from the office. But I think this year it was changed that we are not administering Tylenol, like school provided Tylenol and ibuprofen out of the offices. So if you as a parent wanna send ibuprofen or Tylenol to school for your child to take for a headache, they could take that out in the same way as I might have to send, backup insulin or diabetic supplies to school for that.
So you have to reach out to the
So-
school and say, I'm sending
Yes,
Tylenol with my
and there's a form,
student.
yep, and keep it in the office and then they administer it that way.
So,
Did Autumn look at this one? Yes?
yes.
This one? Okay.
So Sarah, are you saying that if I wanted to have Tylenol or ibuprofen available for my kid at school. I would have to send my own bottle,
Correct,
and it would be kept in the healthcare office?
correct.
Okay, we specifically did not do that because we didn't want 178 bottles of ibuprofen.
I understand that, but
So
that-
why did this happen?
I would have to defer to Autumn because she read our policies and practices and that, right? Shannon, am I?
Yeah. She'll be joining us for policy 8451. Do we want to ask her then?
Probably,
Yeah.
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 I remember when the whole conversation went down the very first time and we opted not to do that. And we
Right.
would do that, but this is something new that she is. Said we were maybe out, I don't know if we were. She brought that change forward this year when she came and examined what we've been doing.
Otherwise, wouldn't it be then, if we had it, we would be purchasing it?
Correct.
So I'm assuming that's,
I don't know how much money we spend on ibuprofen and Tylenol, but I'm pretty confident that it's not breaking the budget.
I don't think it was that. I think there was some liability that, so I'm giving her a heads up that we'll ask her about it when she jumps on.
Okay. On page 26, the CBD products, the option 2 was taken to align with current language.
So it wasn't checked on here, so that's what we're checking.
Yeah, because this was sent to Autumn and, yeah. And,
So that's all it should be.
and there's another document that you have access to that shows all of these changes.
That's the one
So,
that Alicia emailed out a while ago.
yeah, so this is a PDF. And then the opioid antagonist plan, option 2 was recommended by the policy committee and Autumn. And that was it for this policy. Any other questions on this one? Policy 5460, the graduation requirements, we had our own, that was non-Neola. Sarah went through our own policy and transferred the particulars to the Neola policy. So the policy 5460, that's Neola. All of those language was recommended by Sarah, and it aligns with what we had as our own policy. For example, on page 33, it's 24 credits. On page 34, it's 8.5 elective credits. Community service option was taken. It's outlined in our student handbook. On page 35, the physical education credits option, and that's aligned with our current policy. Cheerleading or dance line are also counted for it, and it has to be for at least one season, as defined in the high school handbook, and it's while enrolled in grades 11 and 12, and as documented by the school counselor, athletic director, and coach. Page 35 to 36, the graduation credits as a middle school student, both of those options are taken. Any subject area, and that grade is not factored into their high school GPA. And again, this is our current practice, and it was in our own policy. On page 36, the transportation language is eliminated because it's not applicable to our situation. Page 37, the students with disabilities, the option of diploma. And on pages 37 to 38, the GED option 2. Any questions on any of that? Policy 5505, academic honesty, pages 39 to 40. Language was added regarding AI, artificial intelligence. And on page 40, the language about disciplinary consequences was added. That's new. Any questions on that one? Policy 5610, suspension and expulsion, page 41, the developmentally appropriate. That's the only significant change in this one. Policy 5771, search and seizure on page 46, the search language and the assistance of the SRO when feasible, and the parking permit required are changes. Policy 6423, use of district credit cards. On page 48, there's credit card limitations. On policy 7540.05, assistive technology and services, on page 50, there's added language about assistive technology use in conjunction with IEPs. Policy 7544, use of social media, on page 53, there's language regarding the identification of students. This has been our current practice also. Policy 8395, student mental health services. On page 55, there was the addition of virtual to face-to-face and on-site services. And on page 56, there's some added language about the waiver agreement consent. In policy 8500, food services, on page 57, the breakfast program was added. And on that same page, it mentions policies 8540 and 8550. Those will be removed. Those are new policies that we don't currently have, and the administration recommended not taking these policies. On pages 57 to 58, that is language having to do with the current USDA dietary guidelines and the smart snacks in school nutrition guidelines. Pages 58 to 62, there's dietary modifications language and the grievance procedure. And on page 63, there's some language regarding the use of surplus funds from the National School Lunch Program. Any questions on this one? Policy 8510, wellness, on pages 67 through 73, there's minor language changes. For example, changing the word stakeholders to collaborators, and the elimination of the word obesity. Page 72, it states that this policy will be evaluated at least every 3 years. Page 73, there's the requirement to update and inform the public. And pages 73 to 74, that non-discrimination language was added. Any questions on the wellness policy? Policy 8531, free and reduced price meals, on page 75, option 1. Pages 75 to 76, there's some language regarding the eligibility of homeless, foster, runaway, migrant, or Head Start students. And on page 76, there's the requirement for notification to DPI of 25%, or 15 to 25% of students are eligible in a building or in the district. And there's also non-discrimination language added to this as well. Policy 8600, transportation, page 78, that heading should be eliminated because all the language underneath it is eliminated. On page 79, there was a heading added. And on pages 79 to 80, the use of district-owned vehicles language was added in here because we eliminated our current policy 8660, and there was specific information in there that wasn't found anywhere else. So Ed recommended that we add it in here.
Yeah, because we had district owns that.
Then policy, the next one, 4162 is one that's being gotten rid of. 8601 is taking its place. It has to do with controlled substance and alcohol policy for employees who transport students. There's just minor changes to what we already had. Capital letters and lowercase letters, addition of titles to policy numbers. Current policies 8640 and 8651 are being replaced with some new policies that we've already talked about. 8660, transportation by private vehicle for district-sponsored activities or trips. This is a Neola template. So everything in it is aligned with our current policy and practices. Pages 87 to 88. Policy 8680, bus services contracts, there's just some minor language changes on pages 90 to 91. Meeting minutes, policy 0168.1, on page 91, we're eliminating the word only to reflect what we discussed at our last board meeting. And then policy 0167.3, public comment at board meetings. On page 93, there was the addition of that new item M about board discretion of possible exclusion. The discussion at the last meeting was to table it at this time. So no change from what our current policy is at this time.
So that's for 617.3, public comment,
Yes, 167.3.
table it?
Well, that's what was decided at our last
Okay.
meeting.
All right, yeah.
This is just the one.
But it was
You guys
already-
reviewed it at the committee.
It was in the list, so.
So are you saying we're gonna table it now, or are we going to discuss your addition of, M?
The new item M was already discussed at the last meeting, and the decision was made at that meeting to table it.
Right.
It was in the document because we met on October 11th.
So we would just, when these come back to the next one, we would just pull that one off the list.
We can, sure.
If we-
Yep. So all the policies that are being eliminated, do you want those pulled off the list as well?
Well, we don't need to take action to, right, on those?
No.
Then I said table. So it's not.
To eliminate a policy?
Yeah, we probably should take action on it.
Yeah, I think so too. So we should probably leave them all. So the only one we're removing then is 0167.3?
Yes.
Okay.
Or if you want to leave it on, I can put taking no action, so it's there referencing that you, the policy committee met on it. That could be an option too. Just so if we look back on the documents and it's gone, and it, you know what I'm saying?
So keep it in our Google Doc?
Yeah, so I can update it on the Google Doc and just put in like orange notes, like
Or
not
maybe
taking
put,
action.
You can
strike through it?
Sure. Then I'll re-up-do the, that way the stuff stays together, you know.
Let's put a
just throwing it
strike
out there.
through it and change it to the yellow highlight.
Okay.
And that would match your key at the top,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Then there's another document, and this one is about new Neola policies that were brought to us that we do not currently have. The first three all have to do with employment, and we checked with Rochelle. We are not, and with Shannon too, I believe. And we are not taking any of these because they're already addressed in our employee handbook.
Policy committee?
Yep, yep. Policy 5430, class rank, we asked for Sarah's input on that. We had our own policy, and so she took what we currently have and she put it into the Neola policy. Oh, wait a minute, no, that wasn't the class rank one,
No, that was
the-
graduation I did.
That was graduation requirements.
Right.
So policy 5430, class rank is new, we did not have anything, but we did have practices. And Sarah went through this policy and made recommendations.
I don't know if we did. Trent, is this one of the ones we looked at, or did we did?
We looked
Look at this one, right?
Yeah, your comments are.
Yeah, we did,
still on
okay,
the
great,
document.
sorry.
Well, it was a month ago, so.
It was.
Yeah, so you checked 9, 10, 11, 12.
Right, yep.
So on page 10, yeah, it's 9 through 12, and she recommended to take options D through H and the option within H. Policy 5610.03, alternatives to expulsion and reentry plans. This, we sent to Ms. Eichten as well. Her recommendation is to take all options A through E. And then the last two, 8540 and 8550, administration recommends not taking these two policies. One was because the vending machines, I think, having to be, that there was vending machines in the teachers' workrooms. And the other one was because you've already worked with food service. And so they did not feel that it was necessary to take these two. So in the new Neola policy document, when we bring this back for approval, should we take out the policies that we're not taking?
If you're asking for my opinion,
Yep.
I would put in the notes in like the orange, not taking, and leave it there, because then if you wanna look back on it, you can see it was discussed, or if we get another update or something and we say like, oh, did we look at this one? And if it's gone, then it's not there to reference, so that's what I would recommend, but.
Make the motion, we would want to say approve the policies as recommended in the attachment. Because it would say, there would be the recommendation not to take them.
And then in the minutes, I can list out the specific ones.
Okay.
Two, you take 2 or 4. Or go through on there. Okay. Thanks, policy committee. Any other questions from anybody? Thanks everyone who looked at these and comments.
Danny and Ian, do you have anything you want to add about any of these?
You covered it all really good, so thank you.
I didn't time
Very good.
myself, but I tried to be efficient.
It's very good.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to item 8, policy 2416, student privacy, parental access to information. Annie, I'll shoot this one if you're good. Well, so this policy was a survey policy, and we asked the administration team to look it over and see if they had any recommendations, as any change of language, or any items to update. And I think the only thing we added was, it says in there, instead of required survey, it would be optional survey, was their recommendation.
So in the policy where it says no student shall be required as a part of the school program or the district's curriculum without prior written consent of the student, if an adult or an emancipated minor, or if an unemancipated minor, their parents to submit to or participate in any survey, and this could be what is added, whether required or optional, analysis or evaluation that reveals information concerning all those things that are required by state law that parents are notified.
So like, it was any optional or required
Yep.
survey, we go to the parents.
Does somebody have draft language? I never saw anything part of this meeting. If there is, can we just move it to next meeting as a first reading? If there's, kind of like we did, so everybody has the opportunity to review it?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't catch it.
So will it come to the next meeting as a first reading, or wait until December work session to bring it as a first reading?
The work session, I would ask. I'm not gonna look at it, I just would like to see it, discuss it, and then have time to think about it, that's all.
Yep,
Okay, December work session, you back?
put it back, yeah. we'll
Can you-
wait. Because I think there's a draft out there, I just,
Can it be put in a document like these other policies, so that it's color coded, so it's just like the format we're using?
yeah.
Perfect.
Good?
Yep.
Okay. Next item, item 9, or any other comments? Okay, we'll bring it back into December. Okay, item 9, policy 8451.
I think she's on. Yep.
So,
Hi guys, yeah, so I had my memo sent over to you guys with a recommendation to remove that current policy. With the main factor being that our policy does not reflect current guidelines for the management of head lice in a school setting. I did outline in the memo, kind of the literature surrounding that and whatnot, but of course want to be available for additional questions.
So Autumn, you and I emailed back and forth a little bit about your memo, and I looked up all of your references. Did you have any discussion with our school district medical advisor about this?
I did not, no. With it being that it isn't a medication type policy and that it's known that head lice does not have any public health hazards, it didn't seem necessary to consult the MD on it.
Okay, as I looked through all of your attachments, I found that Wisconsin DPI has developed a policy and protocol sample to assist school districts in developing and updating this policy. Rather than just eliminating it, I would rather we consider updating it with the information that you've provided so that we are current with CDC, AAP, and the School Nurse Association.
Absolutely, I would be happy to draft something.
So perhaps there would be a time that the policy committee could meet with you. Maybe we can arrange that via email when we're all available. Would that be all right with you, Autumn?
Oh, sorry, yes.
Thank you.
Lori, just to make sure I'm clear, so you're saying we would keep 8451, but change it to reflect the things, so we still have a policy, but it reflects all the things in our memo. Okay, great. Okay.
So policy will have a meeting and then update it, maybe we put it on the next agenda. Or
Well,
depending
maybe
on what we
not
update.
until the December work session again.
I guess just keep Shannon.
It's going to depend on when the policy committee is going to be available as well.
Okay. Any other questions on the lice policy? Okay, all right.
Do you want to ask for the?
About the aspirin and the ibuprofen.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
See, I might be a little out
I
of it,
know.
but I do
You got
remember.
vertigo, but you got it. Autumn, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so as they were looking through policies, we had a question on kind of the change in practice regarding distribution of things like Tylenol and Advil from our offices. Can you kind of speak a little bit to that change and what the practice is now?
So I wouldn't say there's much of a change. I think it's enforcing what our policy outlines. That's where the gap was.
Okay.
We are following the policy now. I think when our conversations were underway, we just simply were not reinforcing what it was. So the main thing is that we have consent for any over-the-counter medications that are being distributed to any of our students in our school district. If a child requires a prescription, we have a physician's order in addition to parental consent. Either over the counter or if physician prescribed medication, the parent or the physician can always recommend that the student self-carries the medication, and then your district nurse would review on a case-by-case basis benefit versus risk of them having that medication on hand.
So, Autumn, my understanding of our current policy is that if there's a medical recommendation and parental consent for a student to take ibuprofen or Tylenol, that they go to the healthcare office and the healthcare office supplies that medication, correct?
Correct. Yet we do have supply of it. There also, you have other items that we don't supply. We only have Tylenol and ibuprofen in Tums. So there are other over-the-counter medications, though, that parents do have to bring in if they are indicated.
Okay, so parents aren't sending in Tylenol or ibuprofen or Tums?
Some are. Some choose to want to have their own personal supply for their student, but the majority, no, they use what we supply for the students.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions on that one? Yeah.
No, is that one good?
Yes.
Okay. I think that's all for Autumn then, right?
Okay.
Thanks,
you.
Autumn.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, item 10, Curriculum Advisory Council. So you kind of brought this up, reached out to a couple
Yep,
schools, I think.
yes, reached out to Hudson and a couple other districts south of here. I can't even pronounce the name, Lago, I think. Anyways, just trying to get, parents have expressed an interest in reviewing curriculum, and Hudson has been doing this for about 6 years, having they call it a curriculum advisory council, and it's made up of parents, I believe, and they meet about 4 times a year. They don't do any voting, they don't really make any decisions, but they do look over the materials and talk about it, discuss, share things with the community about what they learned. I just think that might be really beneficial to us, since parents seem to be more and more interested in this type of thing, so. Yeah.
So Danny, again, on something like this, is this something we would set up where they would report to the board? Any recommendations they have with curriculum? Do they meet with a curriculum director, or how does that? Is that what we're talking about here?
Roughly, the framework still needs to be
Okay.
figured out.
So it'd be somewhat like an advisory committee,
I would say so.
where you have majority parents?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you were describing it, you said that this advisory council would not have a vote?
I don't know. I would have to do more research. I've only had like a week to work on this, so. From what I understand, from these other people that I've talked to, other board members, they don't do any voting.
So it sounds like what you described is that they come in and they have an opportunity to view the curriculum, ask questions, and then do they report out at a school board meeting, or?
I don't know.
Okay.
I can ask more questions. I'll keep
Yeah.
working on it.
I think that would be the way to set it up, is that we would actually have a report to the board, and then the board could take action, or we could be involved that way.
Can you remind us what we currently do? When there's new curriculum, there is like a public piece to it, right?
Well, public here, yep, I would say not what you're describing, but the process happens in the buildings with staff, and then it's brought here for discussion, awareness, those kinds of things. So Danny and I talked about this a little bit, because I too had talked to the guy in Hudson, and I think they've got a pretty good system in place. I took a couple notes too, so it is parents, it's not a community group, it's a parent group. Meeting 4 times per year. So curriculum decisions have been made prior to information coming to this group. It's really more about the group then providing feedback to staff for, as you're looking through these materials, what questions might you have from a parent perspective? How might you help us roll this out? What are some things that parents might be looking for, looking into, that would be helpful as we're rolling this out? What are some areas you see that would be ways for us to support this implementation for parents to be able to do things at home? It's really getting that parent feedback from that lens. It's not parents choosing curriculum. That process has already taken place. It's more of the feedback. He had described to me too that people on this council can check out the materials, take them home, really kind of dig through them in whatever depth people might want to do, and then bring that information back. He also indicated that in addition to most of their topics surrounding teaching and learning, one example I had given Danny that he said to me was, one of our meetings recently was about homework and getting information and feedback from parents of, what are you seeing at all the levels, and, those kinds of things. So it's not all totally curriculum, it's basically anything that has to do with teaching and learning and being able to get feedback from parents at all levels. He had indicated that their group is about 25 people, representative of, obviously they've got multiple elementary schools and those kinds of things, so there's people from all levels. But, and I agree, he has said that it's super valuable, that they've had really healthy conversations, good information. I don't know the answer either if they report to the board. I don't think it's nothing where the board would take action. It's really more of how do we get more voices around the table, how do we get parents more involved in being aware of what the curriculum is, so.
When you say he, are you referring to like
the assistant superintendent.
So he's kind of the
Yes.
liaison to this group?
Yes.
And is this group, referring to Hudson?
Yes.
Is it, are they chosen to be on there? Is it open to anybody who wants to show up on a set date and time?
So they have to apply.
Okay.
And once they go through the application process, he said that they make sure that the group is diverse, that there's representation from all levels and all buildings. Obviously there it looks a little different than here, but making sure if we did something like that you've got elementary, middle, high school parents, those kinds of things. But yeah, depending on how many people apply, they go through a vetting process to make sure that there's a wide variety of.
And he meets with them, feedback, discussion.
Yep.
He takes it back. And,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
The other little bit of research pieces that I did, I found that Rosemont, Minnesota put out a press release calling for interested parents to apply for a similar type of thing called Curriculum Advisory Council, Curriculum and Instruction Advisory Council. And so it's a 3-year commitment, and that started on July 2024 for them. And then Alexandria started a similar council, so school districts are starting to think about this.
So what I might add here is, I know not everybody likes Facebook, but on the community page, there was a poll put up. 281 community members voted that they disagree with limiting parents' involvement in school curriculum review. So, I mean, that's significant versus 32 votes agreeing to limit parents' involvement. you know, for instance, we still got, I don't know if you can pass these out, Lori. We still got a book here. There's boys and all boys aren't blue. It's listed as a textbook in our schools. There's 11 copies of it. It's in a library catalog. Parents have a reason to be concerned and want more involvement in curriculum choices, and if books like this are still here, I mean, that's concerning to a lot of parents. When we talk about trust, parents need trust with their schools.
Yeah, I don't think that book's in the library anymore.
It's listed as a textbook.
It might be listed, I'm just saying, it's literally locked up and we just saw it yesterday.
There's 11
I did have a conversation with Dr. Newman with this.
11
about
copies,
this book,
right.
and it was never used as a textbook
Right.
or in curriculum.
It's how it's coded just in our system, but it's not in
But it's
use.
still in the school?
Is it physically in our school? Yes. It locked up in our principal's office? Yes.
Okay, so.
Well, staying on topic, I mean, I'd be happy to hear more about, you know, what, especially, I guess what Hudson's doing. I think that's a great
Yeah.
place to start. It's close and local, they're doing it. I don't think it's something to report back to the board. I think that's an internal checks and balance piece. Include parents, if they want to commit, we just need them to commit and be part of it. But I think the way what you described, they're doing the right thing.
I would just say it needs to have some teeth where, you know, we can bring up issues like these books and discuss this in a productive way, not bury these things and just have a fluff conversation. We need to have in-depth conversations about a curriculum. We want to have trust with our parents. We want enrollment to increase. I think it's good, but it needs to have some teeth and they need to report to the board. They need to be involved in a serious curriculum review, not just something to get together and talk about grading or, I mean, it needs to be serious.
Ian, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm thinking this kind of ties into our leadership cohort pilot Shannon was discussing earlier. Could be tied into that.
Lacey?
I think referring to what's being discussed, I think actually when having these discussions, knowing what a curriculum is, because a curriculum is laid out throughout the year and follows the strict guideline of scope and sequence and goes with Wisconsin state standards. A curriculum is not a library book, and I think that sometimes being informed on the difference between some of those or what options people have, going back to the book thing, we went through that, we have the policy for that. A book that's in the library is not a part of our curriculum. A curriculum is what is put forth in a guide for classrooms. And I think looking at what you're referring to, Steve, on the Facebook page, in my opinion, I think, yeah, parents can be made aware and involved, but I don't think that the wording of that for you to use 200 and some people, in my opinion, as I worded that, I don't think it was worded appropriately to be accurate to what we're talking about. I don't think it was, things like this were posted under that, and this isn't curriculum.
Well, it says textbook, so I don't know. I mean, I look at this and it says textbook, so tell me.
So I would love to see where in a classroom, and I think this was laid out, I think Jenny, you had with where this is at, but we have received, and parents have this on Somerset's website that says this is our textbook, this is what we're using, and there was so much time that has gone into that. I know that high school in particular spent hours and days and weeks on that. So I think if we truly want to give accurate information, we look at that versus some pictures that were taken and put on Facebook.
They're all on my Facebook page, they're all linked there, pinned to the top so people can find them pretty easy. And they're easy to find on the district website.
I think, can I say one thing back to what Ian said? I think the only difference maybe between kind of the leadership cohort and this is that the leadership cohort is designed to be community as well. This is parents. right? And so I think they might, overlap a little bit, but I think I want to be clear that I think, for me personally, it's probably two different things, two different topics, right? And I told Danny too, I think structured the right way, I think something like this could be super helpful, really healthy, I think help move our district forward in lots of ways. I think it's just the structure part, kind of what you're talking about, so people understand what it is, what it's not, those kinds of things, so.
Just more research.
So, yeah, so I'm just thinking, is this something that the board would proceed forward with and have board member involvement? We don't have to go through it tonight, and we can bring it back and discuss at the meeting. But it was just, what we kind of want to see it look like, when would we want this rolled out? Who would kind of run it, to your point, Steve, who would, report back? I agree, we should have some report out of this from whoever is part of that group should be coming back to the board saying, hey, we had a meeting on this, and I agree with you on that, for sure. But yeah, it was just put on there, districts nearby are doing this. Before we start jumping in and having a bunch of research and digging in as board members and, asking Shannon or principals or whoever, discuss it here, and then let's say, okay, yep, let's push it out to, whatever team we want the board to kind of look into making this happen.
I would just caution on the report out to the board. I don't think we're anywhere near that yet, and I think that has potential to really derail a lot of things. And the first thing I like to hear is from Shannon, who from the staff is gonna be the point of contact? And then, once you have that person identified, what is their vision for this? Once we hear that, then we can start too. But we're nowhere near reporting to the board. And I would prefer to never get a report. I think it should fall on the staff individual. They run that curriculum. And I think what you described about Hudson, asking how do we give this message to parents? I think that's a great opportunity to take a bunch of parents and say, these are the questions I have, so we can make sure that those things get answered. And that would be the first step. So it's a huge undertaking, I think, but I think it's very valuable.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that was just our discussion here, and how do we, if we want to keep moving forward.
I did ask for this topic to be put on our superintendent meeting agenda for this Friday. So I'd like to find out too, if there's other districts that I just don't know that are doing like this too, so I can provide that. But I think your point of, to do this right and to do it well, it is a big undertaking, and so Sarah and I have already had a couple conversations about it already too, so maybe more to come.
I found Rosemond's application process too. I can send you.
That'd be great.
So I think we'll bring it back to the end of the month, and then.
Should we wait until December work session?
Yeah, if we could.
I'm fine with that. we're getting it out, it's come up, and just trying to get it out there, and I agree, it's been a topic that's been brought up, so. But, yeah, I don't wanna rush into anything, and again, I also, if we're asking a lot of different things to go on right now, if you're doing leadership, we're doing goals for the report card, we'll be doing, goals and review in December for Shannon, evaluation, so I mean, it's a lot kind of coming up here. So I'm fine putting it into December work session again and discussing.
Is that enough, or do you think we should go to January?
December sounds good. Otherwise, we'll never get this.
Hold on. I guess what I'm thinking here is do we want our administrators and our board digging into this? I'm not saying set it up and hey, we're gonna have a plan in December.
Yeah.
I'm saying is this something we wanna have Shannon and Sarah and Joe or whoever else dig into this?
Yeah, I understand
As
that.
a board.
But when
wants
you
to
went through
proceed.
your big list of what we're gonna be doing in December,
Yeah.
I'm starting to think it's getting long. That's all.
Or maybe just an update in December, and we can kind of see as you talk to other administrators and superintendents, if I could see how this could shape up, and maybe you have some people in mind, or maybe that come forward after this meeting, hey, I'd like to do that for this group or something, to kind of take that on.
I would like to suggest that we change the name of it so that it is not an advisory committee and would not fall under that policy. Because that policy requires, a specific timeline and.
We'll have the different language, Curriculum Advisory Council, not committee. I didn't think it was gonna fall under that Citizen Advisory Committee in my mind. But
I didn't either,
might have to
but
figure that
yeah.
out. So lots to
that
iron
can be
out.
part of the research.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll,
I think what I just need to know is, are you expecting something back from me in December or January? I just need to know what to prioritize.
Okay, the board thinks on it, and then we'll have it on the agenda again. And you don't need to report anything out in December, but it's, you know, what do our visions look like for this? And if we want our admin to proceed with this, I guess. That's kind of where I was going with it. If it's something we wanted to look into in the setup.
Can I make a suggestion? With the superintendent report, Shannon had recommended you put the word pilot behind. I think that might, just my 2 cents, trying to, if this is new and something, maybe wording it like that, like what you had mentioned, 3-year commitment. It's like, I think, to go into something saying 3 years or 2, it's like.
Sure. Maybe 1 year.
I mean, with just
Pilot.
all of the discussion and different feedback, maybe to word it more as a pilot to see, okay, let's get our feet wet, let's see how it goes, instead of putting this as.
Smart.
So Shannon, it seems like you and Danny have talked about this and have both done some preliminary research. What are your feelings on it? Do you want to move forward with this, Danny and?
I had time to work on it, but you're so busy. I'm okay waiting till January to really have a good, solid 3-4 weeks to work on it.
Yeah, so I've only talked to the assistant sup in Hudson. I've done no more than that. We did have a conversation about it, just kind of talking through some logistics and things like that, which was great. I mean, January would be my ideal because there's just a lot happening right now and I want to make sure I can give this the time I want to be able to give it. That would be my ideal.
January sounds good.
So January work session.
Okay. Let's have an update in January, I guess then. Okay, all right. Consent agenda. Anybody ready to make a motion on the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve item 11, consent agenda A, personal update 1, and B, sick bank 1, as listed on the agenda.
I second that.
Any discussion?
The position that's gonna be filling Michelle Maher, we are gonna go ahead with, I see you have you have somebody on there for that position.
Yep, so it's the second person listed on the personnel update.
Further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes, so no. General information. Next meeting will be November 18th, with a listening session 30 minutes prior, so the board, please look at your schedules for the 18th, and if you can sign up for the listening session, if you haven't done one in a while, or it fits your schedule, go in and sign up. We'll try to get that signed up by noon, right, on that Friday, Alicia? So when she sends out the update the Wednesday prior, just take a look at that listening session if you're able to make it and sign up for that, so she can put the names on the top of the agenda so people know who's gonna make the listening session. District celebrations, Steve, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I'll just say tomorrow's election day, hopefully we can all get up early and vote, right? Vote, 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 because whatever happens at the federal level could affect our schools.
Lori?
Veterans Day is next Monday, and we're having a program at our high school, and the community is invited to participate in that at 9 a.m. Congratulations to our cheer team, placing 4th and qualifying for nationals again. I don't know if they're talking about going again, but and the Somerset Memorial Scholarship Fund rolled out their scholarship application last Friday. Sarah Calling presented the entire application process to the entire senior class. She did a fabulous job. So any parents of graduating seniors, talk to your child, please, about filling out that application form. We have many scholarships available for a variety of institutions, 4-year, 2-year, and even for students who are going directly into the workforce, and thousands of dollars that we'd like to give you. So please apply. There's something for everyone. And ski club registration is open. So if you would like to join ski club, the Trollhagen registration and waiver forms are available in the high school and middle school offices, and the online registration for transportation is also open. Thanks.
Lacey?
I feel like I covered what I needed to cover tonight.
Same.
Well, we'll miss you, Lacey, first of all. Sad about that. It was cute to see some pictures from the second graders visiting Deerfield residents, spending some time with them. It's always good to have the elderly visited by those younger ones.
Yeah.
Lacey, thanks for your time on the board. Sorry you had to make this decision in these circumstances, but we appreciate everything you've offered the board these last few years. That's it.
Agree, thank you, Lacey. Thank you to the policy committee for taking the time to review all those, that's a lot of work. Thank you for the admin team and Alicia for all your work on that as well, that's very helpful, put it all together that way. And linking it to the agenda so everyone can see the updates. And then there's some middle school choir band concerts next week, I think Thursday, at the high school multipurpose room. It starts at 7 o'clock, so there's some other thing going on. Otherwise, I'll take a motion. Ian. Oh, Ian, yeah. Sorry, Ian.
It's all right. I was just gonna congratulate our cheer team for qualifying for nationals. And congratulate all of our fall sports as they come to an end the season. Thank our administrators for presenting tonight. And the Music Boosters fruit sale is available till, help me with this, Lori, November 13th.
I don't know, I'm sorry.
Dang it. 13th. I could be wrong. But it's still available, so order now. Then
Yep.
thank you, Lacey, for your service. Feel terrible about your experience. And I understand your decision. It doesn't make it any less disappointing. Wish you luck in the future. That's it.
Thanks, Ian.
All right, thanks, and I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, thank you, everybody.